are my 3 best self-editing tips. The first one is don't edit your manuscript right after you finish writing it. Let it marinate. Let it soak up some of that time and effort, okay? That way you have a fresher perspective when you do get back into it. The second one is to change the font. It kind of tricks your brain into thinking it's a whole new text it's looking at. Okay, I've caught a lot of errors this way. The third one is to read everything out loud. This helps you figure out what sounds awkward, especially in dialogue. So if that's something you struggle with, I highly recommend you do so, okay? If it sounds weird for you to say out loud, the dialogue, then that's probably a sign that you need to rewrite it. That's all. You want to know what else I think? Of course you do. Remember when I was talking about age gaps? Yeah. At what point is the age gap acceptable? Hear me out. Let's say the FMC is like 19, because she's always 19 for some reason. And the MMC is like 45. He's been immortal for 2 decades, for 20 years. So he looks like he's still in his 20s, except he's a 45-year-old immortal. Is that okay? Would that be acceptable? Or do we automatically have to make him like 150 plus to make it super not normal? Okay. Just wondering, because a 45-year-old and a 19-year-old in our world is like not unseen. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's all. Here's some advice from a book editor to anyone who wants to become a book editor. I am a freelancer. I do not work in traditional publishing, and I never have, so please keep that in mind. The first thing is to love what you do, okay? It takes a lot of energy to do this work, especially at the beginning when you are still trying to establish your presence and your portfolio. If you don't love what you do, I think you may give up very, very quickly, okay? The second thing is to figure out what you're good at fast. And don't oversell your skills. It's okay not to be good at everything. The third thing is whether or not you need a related degree to succeed in this job, okay? I can't speak for everyone, but I do have a degree in comparative literature. And while I don't think it's 100% necessary for me to have that in order to do my job, first of all, it did lend me some credibility at the start. Second of all, the skills I did learn about writing, about analysis, about how to read, okay, they do still help me right now in the present in my job. So do with that what you will. That's all. Here's something I've noticed as a book editor. Sometimes when I request sample pages from a writer, they'll come back to me saying, here is an excerpt from chapter 3, because that's where the story really takes off. If you know that's where your story really takes off, what is the point of chapters 1 and 2? You are subconsciously aware that nothing really interesting happens until chapter 3. So why not just cut chapters 1 and 2? As a reader, I want to be hooked, maybe not by the first page necessarily, but the first chapter, certainly. Something has to happen, okay? Something that draws my attention. Doesn't have to be the big thing, but something. That's all. You know what else is a really cliche opening chapter? The main character waking up and going about their day so that you can establish what their normal routine is like. I'm guessing something really interesting happens in chapter 2 or maybe even chapter 3 that disrupts that routine. But let me challenge you to make the interesting thing happen in chapter 1. Just a wild idea here. The only exception I can think of is if the normal routine is highly unusual for us mere mortals, okay? As in maybe the main character is a monster hunter and they're doing their laundry to get rid of the bloodstains. I don't know. Okay, something like that. That's all. Here's a random opinion from a book editor. Overwriting is real, okay? If you were just starting out, I would suggest prioritizing clarity, okay? You want your story to be clear, you want it to flow well. Don't focus too much on stuffing your prose full of metaphors or similes or really profound imagery. Like, that's great. Trust me, that's great. I love it when a writer knows how to balance like description with clarity, like flowery descriptions with clarity. Okay, but do it too much and then I'll just get distracted and I won't really know what your story is about. That's all. You know what takes me longest when I'm editing a book? Inline edits. as in fixing your grammar, spelling, and punctuation. I'm not telling you to have perfect grammar, spelling, and punctuation before you submit to an editor, because of course you need the editor for a reason. You are not a perfect writer. No one is. What I am telling you is to put your best foot forward. If I'm looking at 100 queries a week and I'm deciding which projects to take on, it's probably not going to be the one that requires 20 edits per line. These are technical skills you can work on, that you can master with some time and effort. Arguably, these are technical skills that you must master if you are serious about pursuing writing as your career. I would hate for a great story to get rejected by an editor, by an agent, by a publisher, just because the writing quality is too messy, too distracting for the story itself to shine. If you must hire a proofreader before submitting to an editor, do so. But I think that if you want to write, then you got to learn how to write. That's all. This is for all of you young writers out there. Talent is not determined by age. If someone tells you you're too young to do something, to be something, you tell them, we'll see about that. Then you go and do it anyway. Write out of spite. Don't waste your time on people who don't believe in you. I recently edited a manuscript written by someone who was 15 years old. 15 years old! I was so impressed by the quality of the writing. The story was good. The storytelling, even better. So if you are young and you want to become a published author one day, you stay up nights thinking about it, okay? Keep dreaming. And, of course, keep writing. That's all. I had a lot of people ask me recently how exactly I became a book editor, so I'm going to tell you. If you've heard the story before and you don't want to hear it again, then you can skip this video, but otherwise you are going to listen to me ramble. Let's start with the fact that I was born annoying about grammar. That has not changed. I've just learned to correct people's grammar internally instead of to their faces because a lot of my friends found that annoying. I decided to pursue a degree in comparative literature in university because I thought that would be so useful for getting a job, right? It was not. Right before graduating, I started panicking because, hey, I need a big girl job if I wanted to afford existence. So, I looked up publishing jobs. Very competitive market, you see. I applied to exactly one job because that was the only job I could see myself actually doing well and actually wanting to do well. Spoiler alert, I did not get that job. But there was a little grace period between my final learning term and actually graduating where I saw this person post about being a freelancer on Fiverr. They made quite a lot of money that year, and I thought to myself, hey, why not? I can just do this temporarily while I'm looking for other jobs that I'm interested in, that I feel like I'm qualified for, etc. Right? Only spoiler alert, I never did look for another corporate job. I stayed on Fiverr, and I still am on Fiverr if you want to find me and hire me. Okay, so here I am today, a few years later, and I am so unbelievably blessed to be where I am. Okay, I thank God every single day because I realize that not everyone gets to be this specific about what they do with their time, and I'm very grateful for that. Here's another random grammar tip from a book editor. Counsel versus counsel. I know, we have a lot of homonyms in English, okay? Just bear with me. Counsel, C-O-U-N-S-E-L. This means advice. So someone who provides that advice is a counselor, like your therapist, or a lawyer would be a legal counsel, okay? Versus council, C-O-U-N-C-I-L. This means a committee, a group of people. Someone who belongs to that group of people will be a counselor, okay? Yes, these are all homonyms, and yes, it's very confusing, and yes, it might take you some time to get used to it, but you know what? When in doubt, what do? Look it up. That's all. You want to know what else I think as a book editor? Character development doesn't always mean that they become better versions of what they were. Like, yeah, a lot of stories tell me about the shy girl who learns to assert herself. Sure, that's great. But I feel like in terms of villains especially, I think a lot of villains can get worse, Like, they refuse to change. They don't want to apologize. They lie. They manipulate. They cheat. They do whatever they need to do to achieve their goals, right? They are developing. They're just becoming worse, okay? That's what I think. That's all. As a book editor, this is one of the technical errors that I correct most often. Where your sentences start and end. A lot of you put a comma where a period should go. So, maybe you can be more mindful of that. That's something you can pay attention to when you're reading other books so that you learn where sentences start and end. Sometimes fragments work, sometimes fragments don't. You know, if you want to spare me a headache or 2 or 3, I would appreciate that. That's all. I don't know what makes it really obvious to me as a book editor that a writer has not done their research about the publishing process when they tell me they want to be traditionally published within 6 months. It takes time for me to edit your book. It takes time for you to make the changes based on my suggestions. It takes time for you to query agents and actually land one. It is a very long, taxing, and bleak process, okay? Trust me. I speak from personal experience. It takes time for that agent to do their part and find a publisher/editor for your work. It takes time for that editor to do their magic on your manuscript. It takes time for the book cover, for the layout, for the marketing campaign to be prepared and sorted out. It takes time to traditionally publish a book. So, if you tell me I want to be traditionally published within 6 months, I will automatically assume that you haven't done this very important thing called doing your research. That's all.